if ever you've been on a boat, all of a sudden, if you're not anchored down, you just start drifting away. You start drifting this way, you start drifting that way, but all of a sudden you start drifting closer to shore. And if you don't pay attention, soon you'll be crashing into the shore. And it didn't come from you steering and going full steam ahead and turning up, the engine to go fast. It came from all you doing was stopping and losing your attention on what mattered. And all of a sudden you can drift and drift and drift. Hey, welcome back. It's great to be here for another season of our 20 plus curriculum. It's gonna be an amazing semester. Maybe you're tuning in with us online or you're new to a group. But what we do is we have teachings via video, short little teachings by me. But if you don't know who I am, I'm Pastor Logan. I have the honor of being the 20 plus pastor here at River Valley. And these short teachings will be played at your groups, but your leaders will be leading the discussions, and you'll be just having a great time throughout this semester. But I just had the privilege to share a few thoughts with you and spark the conversation. I hope that the conversation leads to awesome things. It leads to prayer afterwards. And we just love groups. We love that you're able to watch and experience this content. And if you haven't subscribed to the channel, when you want to see other content about our events, culture combos, all that, make sure to do that on YouTube. But today, I have a special kind of teaching. And many of you who are part of River Valley, maybe you've been reading with us through our SOAP sprint, but we've been reading through the New Testament in the last month. And so you've been reading a lot of chunks of scripture. And when you read a lot of chunks of scripture, it's really cool because you get to see kind of the holistic view of what scripture is like. And I love to read a lot of chunks of scripture, but what I also love to do is I love to focus in on a small portion of it. And so this week and next week, as we lead up to our event 20 Plus Winter, which will be happening on Friday, February 7th, when we lead up to this, we'll be talking about just one verse. So today, one verse, and next week, one verse. And I believe that we can get so much out of reading just one verse, and that's what makes scripture so exciting, is we can read one verse. We can read maybe even just a few words, and God can speak to us in incredible ways. And he can speak to us by reading a lot, but he can speak to us by reading a little. And so I was reading through Hebrews recently, and there was a couple verses that stuck out to me. And the first one we're gonna go through today, I'm gonna read it for you here, and then we're gonna talk about what God's speaking to us through this one verse. And so this one verse is Hebrews chapter 2, verse 1. It says this, it says, "We must pay more careful attention, therefore, to what we have heard, so that we do not drift away." One verse. It's short. Maybe you've never read the Bible before, or maybe you've been struggling to read the Bible and you say, okay, I can handle one verse. But what does that one verse mean? The author of Hebrews is writing that to clearly people who have some sort of experience with Jesus. And maybe as you're watching this, you say, yeah, of course I have experience with Jesus. I've received salvation. Or maybe you say, I'm new to faith. I'm exploring that. But he says something important. He says, pay careful attention. And it's often that we're not really paying attention to things. We're multitasking, we're on social media, we're on our phones, and we're not paying careful attention. But the reason why the author says to pay careful attention, it says, so that we don't drift away. We don't drift away in our faith. It's so easy to drift away. And the meaning of this word, what the author was trying to say, and the reason why I keep saying the author, you may say, why doesn't he say who it is? People aren't really sure who wrote the book of Hebrews. Some people believe it's Paul. Others are not convinced that it was him. But what he's saying is don't drift away because it's so easy. It's so easy to let it slip away. Similar to like when you have a ring on and you don't want to lose it. And when I got married, I got the wedding ring and I was so worried about losing it. I remember the first time I went on a boat with a wedding ring, I was like, I'm going to lose this thing in the bottom of the lake. And then I'm going to have to explain to Mac why I lost my wedding ring, and it's expensive and it means so much. And I was so scared. I was like holding on to it so often. I think sometimes that's how we are when we're new in our faith. Is we say, I have this great gift. I received salvation. Jesus gave me so much. I'm going to hold it tight. I'm going to really read my Bible. I'm going to invite my friends to church. I'm going to be involved. But then once you start to get used to it, you start to forget that it's even there. You start to forget that you even put a ring on your finger. You start to forget because it just becomes a natural weight. It becomes a part of who you are. And that can be a good thing, but so easy we let that slip and we forget and we say, oh yeah, I didn't even remember. And then all of a sudden when you take it off, you start to feel it and you go, oh, I'm missing something. But for many of us, we just have this, the Bible, our relationship with Christ just becomes normal. It becomes average. It becomes a part of our routine is, yeah, I'm a Christian, that's who I am. Maybe I'll open the Bible a little bit, but we don't cherish it the way that we used to. And another way to put it would be, in this time they would talk a lot about ships and the way that we operate ships, the way that we steer ships. And another a way to put it would be, anchor your ship down so that you don't crash into the rocks. Don't let the wind push you out. Because when you're on a boat, if ever you've been on a boat, all of a sudden, if you're not anchored down, you just start drifting away. You start drifting this way, you start drifting that way, but all of a sudden you start drifting closer to shore. And if you don't pay attention, soon you'll be crashing into the shore. And it didn't come from you steering and going full steam ahead and turning up, the engine to go fast. It came from all you doing was stopping and losing your attention on what mattered. And all of a sudden you can drift and drift and drift. And so on this one verse, it's a reminder for us to say, let's not be drifters. Let's not fall asleep. You're a part of this. You want to be engaged. And for many people, it's not, one big sin that derails them. It's not, one big thing in your walk with God where you say, this is what derailed me. It's a bunch of small things that end up leading you somewhere that you didn't want to go. And so by being a part of a group, by watching this video and saying, I don't want to fall asleep, I want to be engaged, I want to be a part of this community, we're saying that's who we are. We're going to be the type of people that are engaged. We're going to be the type of people that are focused, that are holding true to what God has for us. And I think it's so encouraging that just in one verse, the author's telling us this is that important. It's so important. We can't fall asleep. We can't drift away, because all of a sudden we're going to become somebody that we didn't think we were. We're going to become that person that we always feared, or we're going to be missing out on the opportunities and the things that God has for us. So I would just encourage you, don't drift. Don't drift away. Let's continue to be active in our engagement with God. Let's continue to be active in our groups. Let's continue to be active in our church so that we cannot drift, we cannot fall asleep, and we can be the type of Christians that God has called us to be. And I'm believing that for every single one of you. So excited for this season, excited for all that God has for us. We'll see you back next week.